Welcome to the Lipoedema podcast, hosted by Shell and Tiana. Our aim is to make noise around lipedema and educate as many people as we can about this disease.
Our guest list contains professionals who work in the field and women who live with lipedema. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to the Lipoedema podcast. I'm your host, Shell, and today I am joined by co-host Tiana. How are you today, Tiana?
So good. Thanks for having me on this interesting episode.
Interesting for sure. My dear, you have had surgery. So how many days post-op are you now?
So today is day 12 post-op, and I count it as op day being day 0, and then you start day 1 from the following day of op. That's just what I'm going with. Somebody on my social media suggested that was the right way, so I'm going with that.
Yeah, so you
Day
don't
12.
include surgery day. You start counting after surgery day.
I think so. That's what we're going with.
All right, let's do that. And how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have had quite a good day today. So recovery is not linear, as I am continually reminded, and more about that a little bit later. But today was a good day.
I am glad to hear it. So what was your motivation for progressing with surgery?
Yeah, so originally when I first got diagnosed, I didn't think that surgery was in my wheelhouse. And I think financially it scared me. That was the most important factor, that how could I justify spending so much money on myself and my body, particularly when I am at stage 2. I am not experiencing mobility issues, and the pain is situational and not consistent. So I don't have a chronic pain issue. But I'd say that in summertime, I'm quite uncomfortable. And if I decide to eat the wrong foods for an extended period of time, I'm uncomfortable. And if I don't move my body in a loving way often, I'm uncomfortable. But I do not experience chronic pain, and I'm very lucky. So with all of that in mind, it sort of didn't seem like something that it felt like a luxury to go through surgery at my stage. And then I did a little bit more. When I say research, I don't mean like going into Google Scholar and reading papers. I mean talking to the community, listening to the community, understanding what the process was for surgery. And it became a little bit more realistic in my head that it was like a preemptive thing, especially because this is a chronic condition. So far, no cure. So I will be dealing with this for the rest of my life. Whilst I'm not wanting to have any more children, so I won't be going through any more pregnancies, I still have to go through perimenopause and menopause in, 10, 15 years time. And my progression for lipedema, I progressed through to stage 2 after I had hyperthyroidism after a virus. So it wasn't particularly pregnancy. It was a virus, and I thought if it was so simple as to getting sick with a terrible flu or something and then going to the next stage, I was really nervous about what my future would look like should I progress to stage 3 or indeed stage 4 once I hit menopause. So it was that fear that sort of rationalized spending the money in my head to go through the surgery. And what I am looking for through this whole journey is to continue conservative management as tools in my toolkit and not as daily necessities. So I'm going to rock compression garments no matter what. I have lymphedema, and I believe I have primary lymphedema, so compression will be a part of my life no matter what. But I would love to have breaks from compression that won't impact heavily on my lipedema as well. So I'm looking forward to the conservative management strategies being tools in my toolkit and not daily necessities.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, hey. And I think the thing we have to remember is we don't know when it will progress. We don't know if it will progress. So being at stage 2 and having the option of getting surgery now is a lot less of an impact, I would think, on your body, because there isn't as much progression, there isn't as big a surgery to undertake. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. Knowing what I know now and experiencing only one surgery so far, I couldn't imagine doing this in 10 years' time. In my mid 40s, it takes a physical toll, and I just want to get on with the rest of my life. So I'm one of those personalities where once I figure something out, it's in the bud, let's do this right now. Once I've made a decision, let's do it right now, tomorrow. I want my appointment tomorrow, let's go. So it just matched my personality to sort of get it done and have it over with, I suppose. So that I'm less inclined to be dealing with the same thing in my 40s, 50s, 60s. Not to say that it might not come back. There's no guarantee, but I will be going into my new life in stage 1 lipedema, because taking all of that lipedema tissue out of your body sort of moves you back to the earlier stages, and doing conservative management, which will hopefully then, if I'm doing conservative management from the very beginning, perhaps I would never have progressed to stage 2, but that's all unknown, isn't it?
Well, that's why we're here, to try and get as many stage 1 women knowing about this so that they, can do what they can not to progress like we did. All right, Tiana, can you take us through your surgery day?
Yeah, okay. I was so lucky to be first cab off the rank for my surgery. I had to present to the hospital at 6 a.m., bright and early at 6 a.m. On the day, I didn't have to wear compression garments for that particular day, but I did have to bring my compression garments with me, and so I opted to bring a few different garments, but I sort of knew that they would probably put me in my lipoelastic post-op garment that I'd already prepared, but I did bring a couple of other ones just in case. So I rocked up at 6 a.m. and signed different clearances and different bits of paperwork at the reception desk, and then I went in on to one of the clinical rooms where I had a progression of different clinical staff come and speak to me, and they start with asking the same questions, what's your name, what's your date of birth, do you know what you're here to do, have you eaten anything this morning, blah, blah, blah. So it's all safety procedures. So it was a surgical nurse, a couple of surgical nurses, Dr. Teo, who is my surgeon, came to see me. He took some photos for like the pre-op photos to then show my progress later on. And my anaesthetist came to see me as well. So those conversations went quite quickly and they were all pretty straightforward. The anaesthetist was probably the one that was sort of more in depth, because it was the first time that I had spoken to them. And from what I understand is you sort of you have options in terms of your like what they use to anaesthetize you. So you could go under general, and that's when you're completely out and intubated, so that you like you're still breathing, or you can have what they call twilight anesthesia, and that's when you're sort of lucid but comfortable. And I've had general in the past, but many years ago, and I just remember feeling quite nauseous and groggy, waking up after a general, and I thought, well, I may as well try the twilight because it's lighter, and hopefully I could walk out of surgery, which is this thing that they want you to do that. They want to get you moving fairly quickly, and so if you're safe and you're feeling well, they want you to start moving and walk out of the surgical room. And I couldn't imagine it at the time, but I would have liked to give it a go. So we agreed that I would go under twilight. So then each clinician that came into the room said, now, when you go into the theatre room, you're going to have to lift up your gown and take off your knickers, and we've all seen it all before, so don't worry, but leave your shame at the door, and we're going to rub you down with this solution, and it's very cold, and it's going to be cold in the room, so sorry about that, but as soon as you get on the table, we'll make you nice and comfortable and warm you up. So that's exactly what happened. I waltzed on in there and lifted up my gown, and it was all very I was so nervous about the whole thing, and I honestly just wanted my anaesthetist to put me under because I didn't want to deal with it anyway. So they were all very lovely, and I got on the table on my back first, and the anaesthetist sort of put me under, and I remember I remember being awake at certain periods, and Dr. Teo came in, and he did the front of my legs first. I was in for lowers, so from my ankle, and he went as high as he could possibly go, which he went up to about mid-thigh. So he did a really good job. So the first part of surgery was with me lying on my back, for him to do, the fronts of my legs, and yes, you can move side to side, your legs can move side to side. So we did all that we could when I was on my back, and then they asked me to roll over, and because I was under twilight, I could roll over, and they made me comfortable again, and I did. They did the back, and then halfway through, before I rolled over, he actually sat me up and got me to have a look at my legs. And that was, I've seen a picture of that, but I don't quite remember that happening. But fascinating to be able to see, because of course there's no swelling yet. So that was really fascinating to think what I would have seen. I wish I could remember, but I don't. So I rolled over, went sort of back to sleep, and then they said, "Oh, you're finished. Can you stand up?" And I stood up, and they're like, "Can you walk out of the theatre?" And I was like, "Yes, I can walk out of the theatre." And they looked at me and said, "Let's get her a wheelchair. She's not walking out of the theatre." I think I just went absolutely white, which is not uncommon for me during medical procedures. I'm a bit of a delicate flower, unfortunately. And so they got me a wheelchair and they wheeled me out of there. And then I was in the recovery room for, I would say, about an hour or so, and had some lovely nurses taking care of me. They put my lipoelastic garment on, did my obs, and just kept me there for a little while the anaesthetic wore off a little bit more. And my blood pressure, went up a little bit. So once your recovery is at a certain stage, I went up to the ward, and at Lipoedema Surgical Solutions at the Gold Coast, they have an 8-bed ward specific for lipedema patients. So I was there with 3 other women who all came up after me at various times, who got various other surgeries done. And the goal from there was to feel well enough to start moving and walking around the ward. And so some even walked sooner than I did. And when I felt well enough, I got up, and everything felt so tight. The other women suggested it felt like you'd run a marathon. So the calf muscles especially, there's just no flexion in your calf muscles. So walking without being able to flex that foot even to stand up is just astonishing to me. I'm sort of shuffling along the floor and trying to mobilize. And you do warm up, and it does get easier, but it's quite amazing how it felt like a muscular like tension. It felt like muscles not being able to move, but that's not the case. And it was fascinating. Anyway, so yeah, it was uncomfortable, and but the nurses were they were incredibly encouraging. So they'd be like, "You're doing such a good job," and I'm really into that. I'm a gold star junkie, so you talk to me with those gold stars, and I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. So I was trying really hard to like shuffle around this ward as much as I could. And then the leaking started, and I was semi-prepared for the leaking because I'd heard about it. But when you see it on the floor and the nurses are following you with a mop and saying, "Oh, look how amazing is all of this is out of your body, and you don't have that in you anymore. Keep going, keep walking." And it was fascinating. They just kept cheering me on as I would leave puddles of ooze on the floor. So there was a lot of walking up and down the ward, and then just resting and trying to hydrate. And we had visiting hours from 6 to 8, so my mum came to visit me, and that was lovely. She bought me a little present and some treats, and bought me some chocolate, and that was very nice. And then they sort of gave us our medicines to get us to have a nice sleep, and we tried to sleep. And that was the day of surgery.
Wow, that is so. Can I, like, for people who haven't had surgery, haven't looked into surgery and what this technique is, where were you leaking from? Like, what did you not have drains in? Did you not, like, what's this leaking you speak of?
Yeah, okay, so great question. So I have about 28, between 28 and 30 incisions all over my legs, where Dr. Teo went in and then, tried to get all the tissue out. So the incisions on my legs themselves were all stitched up after surgery, but the 4 around each ankle are left open, specifically so that the fluid that they use to pump into you to try and break up the fibrosis to get the diseased tissue out has somewhere to go. And I know some people overseas, some surgeons overseas use drains instead in those open incision sites, but with Lipoedema Surgical Solutions, they just leave the ankle wounds open, and then that's where you sort of leak from.
Okay. All right. I get it. So, did you have to do anything to prepare for your surgery? And do you feel that you were prepared for your surgery?
Yes, so Lipoedema Surgical Solutions have a pretty strict pre-surgery protocol. even before you are booked in for your surgery, you have to be quote unquote surgery ready. And they measure surgery ready by feeling how soft your lipedema tissue is. Because as you know, it can feel quite hard and fibrotic. And when we are diligent with our conservative management, it can soften up and be nice and palpable and ready, ready to be taken out. So their conservative management strategies that they boast are an anti-inflammatory diet, manual lymphatic drainage massage, and consistent compression use. So I've spoken about it on my earlier episode that I was doing, to an extent, all of those things to get myself surgery ready. So I was surgery ready in the physical sense, but I honestly don't think I would ever have been surgery ready in the psychological sense, because there's no way to adequately describe the feelings that you go through during surgery to have anybody prepare you to go through it. It was sort of like, I just have to surrender myself to the universe, and it'll be what it'll be, and I'll deal with it as it comes. So yeah, I was not prepared.
Well, I don't think you ever can be. Like, even if they tell you exactly what's going to happen, you don't know how you're going to react. You don't know how, like, did you know, like, every day is so different. Like, you don't know on the day how you're going to feel. Are you going to feel up to it or not? And yeah, so that would be a real sort of roller coaster of, yeah, waiting, preparing. Like, it's not just, like you said before, if you can do something, let's get it done. Let's impulse, let's do this. But you don't have that option. Like, you're from diagnosis to deciding that you want surgery. Like, it's not just an overnight thing. Like, this was months in the making, right?
Yeah, that's right. Months. Yep. But then, as I was recovering, I kept saying to myself, oh my gosh, like, from diagnosis to being here, in the scheme of things, felt like 2 seconds. I was like, I can't believe I did this. And the trajectory of this journey has been so quick. So I agree with you, Shell. It's been months in the making, but in this mindset of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here right now. Like, it's been like lightning.
Because the time goes no matter what. Like, in the time's going to go. Doesn't matter what you're preparing for. Like, that time's going to go. So it's just like upon you. And yeah, hold on.
Exactly.
And how has recovery been?
Yeah, recovery has been really interesting. I'm really naive when it comes to physical recovery, thinking that I'm just someone who's just going to breeze through things, and it's never been the case. But I just have this like naivety in me, intrinsic naivety, that I'm just gonna, like, I'll be the one to wake up one day and be like, I'm fine, and start dance class again. Like, I'm absolutely delusional, and it wasn't the case. It was quite it's quite hard to be immobile, and I think about when I was talking about my motivation for the surgery is to avoid immobility in my future, and to have to deal with these, and I say prolonged periods of immobility for me, because I've never really been immobile for any length of time, to now endure days, weeks, and then on and off days where I'm mobile and then quite immobile, has been really challenging psychologically for me. Overall, my recovery has been textbook. So everything that they say would happen, did happen, be it unpleasant and not unpleasant. So the leaking, it happened. The pain, the feeling that, you've just run a marathon, it happened. The, the medications that you're taking and what they do to your body, those happened. The unfortunately post surgery, you have to take Clexane for 7 days, and that's you have to self-inject that. It's an anticoagulant. That's very unpleasant. But I was really proud of myself every day that I got through that hurdle, because that was quite a big emotional hurdle for me to just be brave enough to do that to myself. But every day I was like, I did that. And my heart rate only went up to 120, and I did that. So yeah, it's a physical roller coaster, but it's also an emotional roller coaster. And Saturday, I think, must have been day 9 or 10 on Saturday, and it was my mum's birthday, and I woke up and it had been the best that I'd felt this whole recovery. And I felt like, wow, I'm walking, I'm moving. I had a shower, I washed my hair. I was getting a cheese platter together. I was fixing drinks for people. I felt so good all day. And then it came to 2:30 in the afternoon, and I just started to get so uncomfortable and sore and tight, and feeling like you're conquering it, and then being humbled by going back a peg. That really shocked me. And then on Sunday, yesterday, I had quite a terrible day where I was dealing with a lot of pain and immobility, and that was quite shocking. And I tend to catastrophize when I'm going through my harder days, because you think, oh, this might be forever, and it's never forever. But I sort of think, well, how am I going to do this on my own next week? Like I had care for 2 weeks. I had people coming to help. I had my mother-in-law helping with the kids, and then today, which is Monday, was the first day where I was quote unquote on my own, doing it on my own with my kids. And yesterday I was like, how am I going to do this? I won't be able to do this. But this morning I woke up and I felt fine, and I was very mobile, and I felt light again, and I could do it. And so that up and down, and how I said recovery is not linear, is just something that I need to continue to tell myself, because it's not. And I will have good times and good moments, and I have to remember to take it in its stride, so that then I'm not doing too much to then fall back down to the bad moments.
And that would be the hardest part, because you're feeling good. You're like, yay, I'm recovered, I'm healed. Let's do all the things. And like all the things, like parties and drinks and kids and cheese platters, and let's do this, let's celebrate, and crash bang. Like, oh my God, girl.
Yeah, crash bang. That resonated with me. It
Yeah.
did. It was a crash and it was a bang. And but yeah, again, flipping to the positive, when I woke up this morning, I felt really good. And but I felt a wiser kind of good, where I knew that even though I felt good today, it's important, once I got home from doing the errands and having my manual lymphatic drainage massage, that it was time to put my feet up, to try and avoid tomorrow that crash, because I need to be productive again tomorrow, but just a little bit productive, not do all of the things, do some of the things, and then rest.
I think that's a hard thing, especially as mums. Like we've got this window of time. It's like, let's put it all in here. Let's get it all done. And yeah, we do have that crash. So I'm glad, like, learning your limitations. Like, okay, well, let's do this one thing, feed up for a bit. All right, I'm good. Let's try something else. And yes, I'm so glad you had a better day today. So what are the next steps for you?
Okay, so the next steps are getting my upper legs done, and that is scheduled for the 3rd of October. So, that's 7 weeks away now, which will go by in a heartbeat. I've got a few hurdles to get through before I progress to my next surgery, and I think that'll keep me very busy and make the time tick much faster. So it's going to be here before I know it, really.
So that's just after the next Queensland school holidays. Is that when
Yeah,
just
the
when
girls
school
go back
goes
to
back?
school, and I head back to the Gold Coast. Yeah. Mm.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow. And so your uppers next time. So is that it for you? Like, so lower's done, upper's done. Then
Yeah,
is
so
there,
I've decided that I would try and get my legs, the inflammation from surgery down as much as possible. So give it, 8 to 10 months, and think about this time next year going in for arms and revision surgery. Because what I've learnt from Dr. Teo is that the solution that they use in water-assisted liposuction, or water-assisted lipedema extraction surgery, is the water is a solution that has medications in it, that there is a limit to how much they can safely pump into your body according to your body weight. So each person is different according to how much they weigh, but they have a limit on the board to how much they can pump into your body before they have to call it quits for that surgery, which is why the surgery has to be in stages. It is also why conservative management is so important, because the more fibrotic you are, the more solution they need for a smaller surface area to break down the fibrosis to be able to suck out that diseased tissue. So that was very interesting to me. And I thought, okay, so I want to be methodical about this. I want the least amount of surgeries as possible because they're expensive. So I'm going to do conservative management. And Dr. Teo went up as far as he could in his first surgery to my, the middle of my upper thigh. And then my second surgery, he's going to do a 360 of my upper legs. And that's where I've got the most volume. And I need to prepare myself for that not to go my way. I may wake up from surgery and might say we need to do another surgery on your lowers because I couldn't get that much. But all I can do is concentrate on my efforts. So my efforts are going to be with conservative management. And as I said before, I just have to surrender to the universe, and what will happen, and I'll have to deal with that.
yeah, only so much is in your control. And knowing you like I am getting to know you very well, you will do everything in your control to get yourself surgery ready.
I'm very good at doing what I'm told.
Yeah, especially if there's a gold star involved.
Oh, heck yeah.
So we're going to finish here, but I got one last question. If you had your time over, what would you do differently?
Okay, there's one thing that comes to mind, and I think for me personally, for my neck surgery, I will choose to go under general anesthesia instead of under the twilight. And I will have to deal with the repercussions of coming out of that anesthesia and, the nausea and stuff that I've experienced before. But it was very hard for the anaesthetist to get me into that space where I was comfortable and also lucid. I remember being quite uncomfortable for the surgeries, and I can't say that I was in pain. I do not remember the pain. It is not a traumatic experience for me, thinking back to my surgery, but I remember not being comfortable, and I remember them having to try and wake me up a lot because he was trying to get me to that point where I was comfortable, but it was too much for my body. The anesthesia was too much. So for my neck surgery, I will probably go under general rather than twilight.
I'm going to say something really weird here. I love a general anesthetic. It's like the only time in my life that my brain shuts down and I'm not thinking of all the things I have to get done Like I
Love
suffer
it.
from a lot of overwhelm, and when I go under, babe, I am rested.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Book me in. I don't have a nice sleep.
Is there anything else? Just knock you out? Anything else differently?
Yeah, honestly, no. I went in with the best headspace that I could. I knew it was going to be unpleasant. It has been unpleasant, but I've been fully supported the whole way. I'm trying to keep my mindset positive as much as I can, and I think between having such a supportive network around me and and surrendering myself to this process, I think everything has just gone really, really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And manageable. Like it's been manageable, like unpleasant, but manageable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your surgery journey with us. I love
Thank
that
you.
we're able to create these storylines for people so that they can, our audience can follow along with what's happening with us. And yeah, I think it's really important to have these storylines. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
for
Yes.
joining me.
Yay. I'm so excited for our next episode.
All right. We won't say any episode numbers. If you're following along at home, we're not saying episode numbers anymore because we just
Never.
end up posting differently, scheduling differently to what we say. So thank you, Tiana, for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening. Till next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Lipoedema podcast. Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced on this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.